The 2018 season begins now. Next on Michigan Podcast.
But there's going to be one team that's going to play solely as a team. No man is more important than the team. No coach is more important than the team. The team, the team, the team.
Looks deep for Anthony Clark. Waits for it. It's caught.
This is no time for that. In the pocket and a sack. Tim Jamison.
Brady gets terrific. Throws it and in. Touchdown, Knight again. Schultz just before Brazil got him. And the leaping interception by Woodson.
Harbaugh back to throw over the middle. Caught by Collier at the 5 on his feet. Touchdown, Michigan. On its way. It's good.
He's 5'7", 179 pounds, a junior at Michigan. But Jamie Morris hacks a wallop, and he delivers for Bo Schembechler.
And here's your first play. Pressure coming. Second. It is Glenn Steele, number 81, who fought his way through the traffic.
Option. And Robinson calls his own number, and he's going to score. Oh, an easy touchdown for Ron Robinson and Michigan.
Win it. We're going to win the championship again because we're going to play as a team. And when we play as a team, and the old season is over, you and I know it's going to be Michigan again. Michigan.
Go Blue, and welcome to this week's episode of Michigan Podcast. I'm Steve Deace, and yes, of course, the Maize and Blue Daubers are down, yet we don't give up. It wasn't over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor. John Belushi once told us, and it's not over when Penn State bombed us in Happy Valley. Nonetheless, we will muddle through. The leaders and best, the victors valiant, and we have a lot to get to on this week's episode. But first, want to thank those that make it possible, the production team led by Aaron here at Michigan Podcast, all of you who subscribe to us on iTunes and iHeart and Stitcher, and especially here on YouTube as well. If you like us, please leave a positive review. I try to answer as many of the comments that you leave on our videos as I can, except for this last week. We got so overrun with comments I could not keep up, and a lot of them ended with, and the horse you rode in on, too. So, I mean, that was kind of cool and stuff. So, yeah, you can write nice stuff if you like sometimes, too. That's a possibility. But you don't have to. Write whatever you want. Anyway, we love to hear from you. We love it when you subscribe, write us positive reviews. Thank you very much. Thank you to our friends at Detroit Sports Podcast, which help to spread the word about our show each and every week. Thank you to those of you that support us on Patreon as well. Help to cover the cost it takes to produce and put this show on each and every week here on Michigan Podcast. And then a new feature that's going to debut this week, later in the hour, M-Go Video. Some outstanding breakdown of Michigan versus Penn State film. Michael Spath from WTK in Ann Arbor, former Michigan All-American tight end Benny Jopru. They will be hosting that part of the show coming up later on in this hour on Michigan Podcast. We call it Michigan Football 101. So if you want to get smarter about the X's and O's of the game itself, that's the segment for you. Now, if you just want to emote, if you just want to fire the coach after every loss, if you just want to say, this is unacceptable, if you want to do that, cool. The internet's for raw emotionalism, if nothing else. That segment won't be for you. But if you want to be clear-eyed and lion-hearted, you want to be sober in your analysis, you definitely don't want to miss Michigan Football 101 coming up later today, this week, on Michigan Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter at Michigan Podcast. If you miss anything we do, check out the website, michiganpodcast.com. Well, let's get started. That was a tough one. But also not all that unexpected. I mean, I've been saying all offseason I thought this was going to be the toughest game to win, but it was tough to watch. And I think the reason it was tough to watch is because when you suspect the worst, and this is just how we roll as human beings, we don't want the worst to be true. So we will hold off believing the worst until we have no other alternative but to. And then sometimes we still won't. I call that magical thinking. I have an allergic reaction to that. I start getting a twitch when people magically think around me. I like to live in the world of it is what it is. So here's what it is. What it is a lot of the same people now in the national media ragging on Coach Harbaugh and he's overrated and Michigan sucks were the same people that told us all offseason this was going to be a bit of a rebuilding year with how many players Michigan lost. They were right. Now, of course, that they're right, they want to claim that he sucks as a coach when they told us for 6 months it was going to probably be a season like this. We didn't listen to them then, but we should have. We are listening to them now, but we shouldn't. The truth of the matter is we just lost too many players. If you go back and watch the Penn State game from last year, because a lot of us thought, could you really make up a 39-point difference in 1 year? Well, yeah. When one team started 3 guys who played in the game last year, and the other team started pretty much everybody who played in the game last year, that was a completely different Michigan football team, and that's not even counting losing Tariq Black, losing Wilton Spate, losing Grant Newsome, who was a force in that Penn State game a year ago. That was an entirely new Michigan team. And I know I said this entire offseason, and I think what happens, and I did it too, you get closer to the season, and you start drinking the Kool-Aid, right? And I get it. We wait 9 months for the season every year. And by the time the season gets here, we've W'd and L'd the schedule so many times that the season's almost anticlimactic. And as it gets closer, you start believing the hype. You start thinking, well, maybe that's not true. Yeah, I know the weaknesses I feared in May and June are probably still there, but it's not May or June anymore. It's August. It's September. It's eternal optimism. And we start thinking, yeah, I don't think it's going to matter. We lost 42 seniors. I don't think it's going to matter. I know every year I buy that Phil Steele's College Football magazine. I know every year. I buy it every year. And every year he's got that section about NFL draft hangover and what happens to those teams that get all those guys picked every year. I know. And almost every year, every one of those teams suffers the hangover that he describes. I know. And our team was in it this year, and we ignored it. And we shouldn't have. I know, but we're fans. It's what we do. But, Steve, you were the one that pointed out that Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State were 3 of Phil Steele's youngest teams last year, and they were in the playoff. True. But remember, I also said this. When we started Michigan Podcast, Memorial Day weekend, 5 months ago, you remember the first show we did? The very first show we did is we took a look at the composite recruiting rankings and retentions of all the Power 5 teams in Notre Dame. And we wanted to see who has the best talent base coming in. And what we found is Michigan's overall talent base, I think it was 16th in the country, which is pretty good. But do you remember this stat? Michigan had 72% of its talent roster in its freshman and sophomore classes. That was by far and away the highest percentage of imbalance with youth in all of college football. Which means it got almost no points. If you're doing the math, it means Michigan only got 2 classes for a total of 28% of its points. And those were the classes that you're relying the most on, your junior and senior classes. And that's why I said several times in this podcast in the offseason, I thought Michigan would be the most interesting team of the year because we were going to see if Jim Harbaugh could do in 2 classes what you've seen Urban Meyer and Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney and others do when they've had 3, 4, 5, 6 classes to recruit. Well, we now have our answer. And the answer is no. He can't. Now, that doesn't mean this team and the coaching staff isn't worthy of some criticism, because it is. I don't know what Jim's sideline demeanor is this year. It's like he's on Quaaludes or something. He's stoic over there. Where's the fire? It's weird. Maybe he just thinks that this is such a young team that it needs maybe more of a father figure right now than it needs, a fiery figure. And that could be true too. That's possible. I have no idea why a fifth year or a senior left tackle, who's not a fifth year because he started as a freshman actually. I have no idea why your senior left tackle, who's going on 40 college football starts, just can't handle a basic stunt scheme from the defense. And you'll see that later this hour when MGO Video has their Michigan Football 101 segment. I don't know the answer to that. Whoever's coaching our running backs and pass blocking ought to do 2 things. 1, hide their head in shame. 2, walk into the quarterback room every Monday and apologize for that weekend's maimings. That's just bad to watch. It's watching Chris Evans and Ty Isaac, and half the time Karan Higdon. Watching these guys try to pass block is painful, both for the quarterback, who is on the receiving end of their lack of fortitude, and for we, the fan, watching it every week. And guys don't seemingly get better. I don't know why on 4th down and 11 yards to go on our last meaningful possession of the game, we went play action pass out of the I formation like I was watching, Bo Schembechler have Rick Leach run a 2-minute offense from 1978. I don't know why we did that. Because I'm kind of guessing Penn State wasn't really fooled by the play action pass on 4th and 11 from the I formation. I don't know why we did that, so I'm not really sure. So there's some criticisms out there. There are. But there's a difference between the micro criticism about the direction of a current season and the macro criticisms when we draw wide sweeping conclusions because we're way too worked up. So we're going to get into some of these in the next segment. But before we do, let me close this opener out with these words of wisdom. Don't be like me. Learn from my mistakes. Last January, I thought the Beeline era was over. I thought it was time to move on. I posted as much at the Michigan Scout site. Go Blue Wolverine. Said it's been a nice run, but we didn't make the tournament 2 years ago. Last year, we kind of didn't make it. We were a play-in team. I don't even count that, frankly. We had just lost to a really bad Ohio State team at home, and we had no energy, no fire, no anything. We just looked bad. I said, I think it's time to move on, guys. I was so confident I was right that I said, if this team makes the NCAA tournament, I'll take a pie to the face. Well, yeah, that. There's video out there of me taking that pie to the face at the end of the year. Wearing this shirt, in fact. That's why I wore this shirt this week, to remind me of that. Keep myself in check. Because by the end of the year, this went down as one of the most fun Michigan basketball seasons since the Fab Five era. That miraculous run in the Big Ten tournament, 4 days in a row, coming off a nearly fatal plane crash, a Sweet 16 berth. That turned out to be one heck of a basketball season. And so, like a man of my word, I put the shirt on here. I let the kids put the pie to my face right there on Facebook Live. Because I forgot something. There's a difference between being critical of what's happening now and then assuming what's happening now is how things will ultimately be. Particularly when you have a coach with a track record. Do you think Ed Orgeron has a track record? Yeah, and it sucks. 3 weeks ago, he was fired in his first year. Now, he is a whole new coach. Everything's changed. Lose at home to Troy State, he's canned. Not going to make it through year one. Now they're like, do you think he's really reinvented himself? Iowa State coach Matt Campbell had a national embarrassment against Texas 3 weeks ago. Team played like dog meat. Now, Kirk Herbstreit is saying he's going to a bigger job. A lot can change when you're dealing with young people of this age in just a few weeks. So what we're watching right now is not good. We're not seeing the player development we had hoped for. Agreed. That's why I think the 2018 season begins now. It's time to see a lot more of Brandon Peters. It's time to get to see a lot more of guys who are going to be back here, more of Kareem Walker. It's time, if we're going to take our lumps, if we're going to have a 7-5, 8-4 rebuilding season, then let's just get it all in the wash all at once now. Let's start building for 2018 now. But just because things aren't going well in certain places now doesn't mean this is where it's going to end up. See, I forgot. John Beilein had a track record, and a damn good one. Well, Jim Harbaugh's got a track record too. And while this isn't good right now, his track record's even superior to John Beilein's. So let's wait. You know, halfway through Rogue One, I remember thinking, man, they ruined another Star Wars movie. It's like they brought George Lucas back. Then we got to the end, the last 15 minutes of that movie, that scene they put in post-production with Darth Vader opening a can for 90 seconds, probably the best Star Wars scene in any of the movies. You walked out of that theater thinking, I got to see that again. How about we wait until the story is over? Let's wait until the movie is over before we go thumbs down communists in the arena. It's not over yet. I admit right now it does not look good. But as I learned during this last basketball season, you can look like a fool when you review the movie when it's only half over. Let's see how it finishes. If you're looking to put the ball in your court, like an actual court, then Sport Court of Michigan has you covered. From basketball to tennis to batting cages to hoops, if you need anything athletic at all in your backyard, give them a call. They're based out of Michigan, and they're ready to install your court sooner than you might expect. Now, if you're in the Southeast Michigan area, like Ann Arbor, Tim Barnes will personally walk you through the process of having your dreams of a professional court in your backyard. Visit sportcourtmi.com for more information. sportcourtmi.com. Now, if you're outside of Southeast Michigan and you need a hoop for your driveway or yard, he's got you covered there too at monsterhoops.com. They'll ship right to your door from monsterhoops.com. Now, if you go to monsterhoops.com and you mention Michigan Podcast, you're going to save $100, guys. That's huge. Save $100. It's even bigger if you mention Michigan Podcast at sportcourtmi.com. If you go to sportcourtmi.com, mention Michigan Podcast, you're going to save up to $1,000 on your backyard game court. So monsterhoops.com, sportcourtmi.com. Stop there today. Tell them Michigan Podcast sent you. All right, back here on Michigan Podcast. So whenever you're at a crossroads, whenever you as a fan base, whenever we feel like we're in an existential moment, and that's true for any fan base, you start believing some lies and clever myths. Particularly in this age of social media and the internet, things just get repeated often enough that people think they're actually true, and a lot of times they're not, right? So I want to take a few minutes here on this week's episode, and I want to debunk some of the mythology I'm seeing out there within social media and the Michigan message boards about where this program is and where it's not, and I'm going to warn you up front. If you are tribalistic, if you're all in on I'm out of patience, or if you're all in on I have the utmost patience, you're probably going to hate the next 10 minutes, right? Because I'm into critical thinking. And, as Thomas Aquinas once said, Rarely affirm, seldom defy, often distinguish, all right? So I know, we don't like distinguishing. We don't like to be adults nowadays. We want, if you're with me on this, then you're right on everything, and if you're not, you're wrong on everything, and you hate me, right? So I get that, but you're welcome to live in that world. I like adult world, so we're going to look at some distinctions here because I just don't like self-delusion. So we've got 7 lies and clever myths we're going to tackle. Here's number 1. James Franklin inherited a better situation than Jim Harbaugh. No. Okay, guys. James Franklin went to a school that they nearly shut the program down because they had a child rapist marauding and sodomizing children on campus, okay? Well, Stevie had Bill O'Brien there stocking the shelves. No, he didn't. Penn State was severely restricted by scholarship reductions, remember? That's why Bill O'Brien didn't take the last train to Clarksville, baby. He took the first flight out. First flight out he took because he didn't think he could build a winner. And he saddled James Franklin with Christian Hackenberg, a quarterback who hated James Franklin so much that when he declared for the NFL draft, he literally thanked everybody in State College, Pennsylvania, other than James Franklin. So no, James Franklin did not inherit a better situation than Jim Harbaugh. Now, I am not saying Jim Harbaugh inherited a good situation, and we're going to get to some of that here in just a moment. But that's self-delusion. Don't lie to yourself. You still can be a good fan without being self-delusional. That's a lie and clever myth. Here's the second one. It takes more than 3 years to build a contender. Does it? James Franklin, there he is in the Big Ten championship game last year against Wisconsin. That was in his 3rd year. They won the Big Ten championship. Nick Saban at Alabama, in his 3rd year, won the national championship. Urban Meyer, in his 3rd year at Ohio State in 2014, won the national championship. Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, in his 3rd year, went undefeated to the BCS national championship game. So no, it is not true that in general, now often it does. I just gave you several examples of when it didn't. Most of the time, though, it does. It took Dabo Swinney more than 3 years. Most of the time, it does take more than 3 years. But that's not a conventional wisdom. That's not the laws of no motion, guys. It's not even the theory of relativity. That's not even E equals MC squared that it takes more than 3 years to build a contender. Especially when in year 2 last year, at this time last year, we were number 2 in the country, guys. At this time last year, we lost a game to Iowa and dropped 1 spot in the college football playoff rankings. We controlled our own destiny for a spot in the playoff. And that was only year 2 of Harbaugh. So no, it is not true that it always takes more than 3 years to build a contender. Lots of examples to say otherwise. Now, lie and clever myth number 3. By the 3rd year, whatever this is, by the 3rd year, this shouldn't be happening. Well, here are some examples I'd like to cite for you. Mark D'Antonio in his 3rd year at Michigan State went 6-7. He was 65-16 the 6 years after that. Nick Saban went to LSU, program that had a lot of coaching turnover similar to Michigan, like Michigan State had, by the way. Bobby Williams, John L. Smith, right on down the line. Well, Nick Saban lost 5 games at LSU in his 3rd season. He won the national title the very next year. Urban Meyer, they had a bad coaching hire at Florida after Steve Spurrier with Ron Zook. Urban Meyer lost as many games in his 3rd season at Florida, including 1 to us in the Citrus Bowl, as he did his first 2 seasons there combined. He then went 26-2 the next 2 years. Now, why did I point out these 3 examples? Well, 1, because somebody whose name I forgot to write down pointed this out to me on the internet, and I wanted to give them credit, and I forgot, and they're going to be mad at me. I don't mean to steal your stuff. I'm sorry. If you yell at me on Twitter, I will retweet you so everybody knows that I stole your stuff. I didn't mean to. I will apologize. I'm normally great about giving credit. I forgot to write your name down. Okay? The other reason I wanted to point these out is, these are 3 schools that had gone through a lot of coaching turnover prior to their arrival of Mark D'Antonio at Michigan State, Nick Saban at LSU, Urban Meyer at Florida. And we saw the same pattern. When they got into the lean years for the previous coach, when the previous coach was on the hot seat, is one class. And then the next class, when they take over and they come in the game late, you saw when they got to that 3rd and 4th year, or that third year, I mean, you saw those were the lean years in terms of depth. Well, what year are we in here? Very similar. Michigan went through 2 coaching hires. Now, I wish if I knew why it's easier to recover from a child rapist on campus than hiring Rich Rod and Brady Hoke, if I knew that, man, I'd be the AD at Michigan now. I don't know the answer to that question. I wish I did, But there's a lot of things I wish I knew that I don't as well. That notwithstanding, we've seen this before, where that third year, which is the recruiting class and two coming off of the previous coach being on the hot seat or leaving, and the new coach coming in, can lead to a somewhat down year. And we're seeing that now. I just pointed out to you a few minutes ago, we started 3 guys on Saturday night against Penn State who started in the game. We beat them 49-10 last year. That's incredible turnover in just one season. See, I don't think this is even about the Penn State game. I think it's about Sparty, and I agree with that. I think if we had found Sparty a way to beat Sparty by any ugly score at all, and we were 6-1 right now and probably somewhere in the top 15, I think a lot of people would be feeling different. But losing to Sparty, and then because you can just say Penn State's got maybe the best player in America. They've maybe the one quarterback in the Big Ten that can throw that deep fade ball that accurately. They're just better. They beat us. It's their year. They had a bye week. We all kind of thought this might not be a good game for us and wished it would have been closer, but it is what it is. It's losing to Sparty on top of this. I think that's rightfully, which has a lot of knickers in tighty-whities and bunches, and I don't blame you. That was an inexcusable loss. Let's get to the next lie and clever myth. Speaking of that defense, Don Brown got exposed. Well, I said something on Twitter over the weekend that I now disagree with. I said, hey, we have a very good defense, but I don't think we have a championship defense. Championship defenses don't give up 500 yards. And then I remembered that they do. Actually, Alabama did it twice to Clemson in national championship games. They won the SEC both years. And they gave up 500 yards to Clemson, nearly lost one of those games, and then barely lost the other one. It does happen sometimes when you're facing elite-level skill position talent. And that's what Penn State has. Trace McSorley is a very good college quarterback. Probably has the best arm talent right now in the Big Ten, although that's a low bar. Saquon Barkley is a once-in-a-generation running back at Penn State. Some of their Mike Gesicki is going to make a lot of money for a long time playing tight end in the NFL. 95% of the teams in college football could not make those deep fade accurate throws McSorley made routinely on Saturday night. Now, it's a justifiable question to say, that David Long interception that for a while turned the game around? Well, we were in a cover 2 zone. How about we play more zone? Their offensive line's not very good. Let's unleash Rashawn Gary and Maurice Hurst and those guys up front to rush with 4. Let's sit back in a zone and let's see if Trace McSorley, let's see if he can go down the field piecemeal, because he struggled to do that against Iowa when they played them that way. Now, I think there's an argument for making that adjustment, but here's the other thing to keep in mind. Coming into this game, when faced with pressure, do you know what Trace McSorley's quarterback rating was? 3. Like the number 3. Like no number ahead of it. 3 by itself. His QBR under pressure was 3. Well, if you're Don Brown and pressure's your default setting, and the other team's quarterback has a QBR of 3 when pressured, and that's being pressured by Pitt, by Northwestern, by Indiana, and you're like, way they get a load of me. They ain't bringing Rashawn Gary over the edge. They're not bringing Maurice Hurst up the middle, okay? So if he's got a QBR of 3 against those guys, what's he going to do against us? We might get a couple of turnovers and put our offense in some short fields, which is struggling right now, and that gives us the chance to steal this game. So it's not as cut and dried of an argument as maybe we think it is at the time, all right? So, no, Don Brown did not get exposed. Joe Moorhead, the other guy over there, is pretty terrific too. And as Alabama has shown us in the last 2 national championship games, you can have an NFL semi-pro team on defense, but if you've got elite-level skill position talent on the other side, you're going to have a hard time shutting those guys down. That brings us to lie and clever myth number 5. Jim Harbaugh is a savior. He's not. He's a damn good football coach who is great when he has good to great quarterback play, like a lot of other damn good football coaches. But he's not a savior. I mean, you stop and look at teams that have won national championships in recent years. And the only one I can think of that did it without exceptional quarterback play is Alabama. I mean, Cardale Jones played out of his mind for Ohio State during that stretch run. Tim Tebow. I mean, Alabama, the reason they didn't win the national championship last year is they didn't have Deshaun Watson. You know, Jalen Hurts was the SEC Player of the Year on offense as a true freshman last year for Alabama. But the difference in that game was Clemson had the better quarterback. The issue we have right now, more than anything else, we have some systemic issues on offense. But the number one issue is we don't have a quarterback on the roster, at least that's what we're being told, that is capable of being the rising tide that lifts all boats. Even when he's healthy, Wilton Spate's pretty good when the players around him are good. This offense was pretty mediocre when he was in there early this year, remember. We know John O'Korn is just not good. I thought he played his best game on Saturday night, and I don't think he played very well. He's just not a good player. No offense, he's a great kid. And I think it's great that he got his moment of redemption against Purdue. I think it's great that he stuck around at the University of Michigan. He's got a prime A-grade degree. Hope he has a great life. But there's a lot of great kids who aren't good enough to be quarterback at the University of Michigan. Millions of them, in fact. He's one. He's just not good enough. That's why I'm an advocate of putting Brandon Peters in. I don't think Brandon Peters is going to fix anything. Steve, Brandon Peters won't fix a thing. I agree. That's why I want to put him in. Because I don't want to do this again next year, guys. We bring back a really experienced team a year from now, and we're going to open the year at Notre Dame with another experienced or another inexperienced quarterback. You know, I remember once having a team that brought back 16 starters from a national champion and went into Notre Dame with a guy named Tom Brady making his first start. We got obliterated. Okay? I don't want to do this again. Again, if we're going to grow and we're going to have a somewhat rebuilding year, then let's just get it over with now. Let's find out what Brandon Peters can do now. Because we do know this. Jim is not a savior. He's just a damn good football coach. And if his quarterbacks suck, there's no way around that. No way around that. Next lie and clever myth. Number 6. Jim Harbaugh is the most overrated coach in the sport. That is beyond preposterous. The hot takes you're seeing, 6-5 record his last 11 games, just like Butch Jones. Does Michigan's program look anything at all like Tennessee's? I can do this all day with these dumbass memes and hot takes. He also has a better 33-game record than Nick Saban had, than Urban Meyer had. Now, I think Nick Saban and Urban Meyer are a lot better coaches. That's how stupid all these hot takes and memes are. Here's all you need to know about Jim's value. Under Jim Harbaugh, Michigan has been in the top 10 of the AP poll 19 times. In the previous decade, 2005 to 2014, before Jim Harbaugh took over, Michigan had been in the top 10 of the AP poll a grand total of 17 times. He has completely revitalized the brand. Guys, we were giving away tickets for buying a Coke Zero a couple of years ago. All right. We were Ed Cunningham's first fake crusade on air before it became C.J. Beathard in Iowa. He's not the most overrated coach in the sport. I think, though, here's what I do think is true. And this goes back to my previous lie and clever myth. I think we Michigan fans may have overrated him a little bit ourselves. Because I think maybe we overrated our own program a tad. Remember, we are the winningest program of all time. We have won national championship since 1957. Remember, a lot of those years that Bo won Big Ten championships, Ohio State was good. In his latter years, Iowa was pretty good under Hayden Fry. But other than that, you know, Sparty was okay. Purdue had a couple good teams. Big Ten's nothing like it is now. You could also share championships. You can't do that now. Lloyd Carr's in the College Football Hall of Fame. He went 10-3 a lot. I think that's the real issue here. Is under the old system, if Lloyd Carr went 10-3 and shared a Big Ten championship with somebody, and we went to an Orange Bowl and beat Alabama, or we went to a Citrus Bowl and beat Auburn, we bought our bowl champion gear like I used to every year. We bought our Big Ten championship shirts. We finished somewhere between 8 and 12 in the final rankings. That was a really good year, and we were happy with that. But that kind of season's not possible anymore. No one would say Urban Meyer sucks. He's got one Big Ten championship in 6 years, and if he doesn't beat Penn State on Saturday, it's still going to be one Big Ten championship because he won't get back there this year either. There aren't any more shared championships. Also, it's pretty much playoff or bust now in college football. Most fans are like, if we're not in the playoffs, then what was the point? So whatever you thought beating Florida in the Outback Bowl meant in 2002, it means a hell of a lot less in 2017. Our final lie and clever myth, number 7. Jim Harbaugh's record of 6-5 in his last 11 games means the program is trending in the wrong direction. Here's the problem with that. The last time Michigan had a stretch of 6-5 that you and I can think of, well, the next 2 years they went 10-1-1, finished number 2 in the country, and 11-2 and won the Big Ten. Again, the story's not over yet. This isn't Rich Rod. This isn't Brady Hoke. This is a fan base and a program that's on far more solid footing than those guys had to deal with. This is a coach with a far better track record than either one of those guys had. This is a young team. This is a totally different team than the one that ended last year with 3 losses in its last 5 games by a combined 11 points. Most of those players are not here. So we have to... That's what boggles the mind when people try to pull out these conclusion data points. You try to make sweeping conclusions without seeing the full picture. This is a totally different team. Most of the guys playing now did not play meaningful roles for that team down the stretch last year that struggled like that. So while that, again, for Paul Feinbaum, that's a great meme to share on social media, it's meaningless. Okay? We now introduce a brand new segment here on Michigan Podcast for those of you that want to learn more about the game itself. Now, again, if you just want to emotionally rant on your favorite Michigan message board, turn off your station, Mike Tyson. But if you want to be a smarter fan, we call it Michigan Football 101 from MGO Video. Here's Michael Spath from WTKA in Ann Arbor and former Michigan All-American Benny Jopru breaking down Michigan's film against Penn State. Trust me, you're going to want to watch this.
Back for football film review with Benny Jopru. I'm Michael Spath. We're looking at this Michigan-Penn State game and second play of the game. 14:25 to go in the first quarter. And this is when we all thought it was going to be a long night, Benny, when the defense misplays an early wrinkle that Penn State throws at them.
Yeah, Penn State obviously they had 2 weeks to prepare for us. They took a long look at the Indiana game. Indiana ran the read option a couple times against us, and their quarterback had a couple wide open lanes, but he chose to hand it off. And here, Penn State is actually going to shift in to slide Barkley into the quarterback position. Metellus is playing inside the boundary hash, which looks a little odd to me. And he has a hard time fitting in his gap, and Barkley is just out the gate here.
And Devin Bush, you mentioned, flows a little bit, maybe too strongly. He's got Chase McSorley, but he and Mike McCray both flow to Barkley's side, to Chase McSorley's side, I should say, and that allows Barkley to have the cutback lane.
Yeah, I mean, the hole there is just gigantic. You couldn't ask for a bigger hole for a Heisman Trophy running back to run through here. The just heavy flow from Michigan. Penn State takes, takes advantage of our aggressive defense in the second play of the game, and it kind of set the tone for the rest of the night.
Benny, 3:28 to go in the first quarter, and Michigan's first, what we probably call successful play of the day, is a David Long interception when Don Brown changes things up and goes from man coverage to zone coverage.
Yeah, we're in the red zone here, and Don Brown throws Penn State for a loop. We've been running pretty much man-to-man all game and plays a cover 2 here. And what's really nice about playing cover 2, playing a zone, is the defender's eyes are in the backfield. They can watch the quarterback. They can watch his eyes where he's going with the ball. And David Long is able to do that here. Obviously, there's a miscommunication on Penn State's end. But if we're playing man-to-man here, I highly doubt that this is an interception with that miscommunication. It's because we're playing zone and the defender's eyes are in the backfield looking at the quarterback, following the football, that we're able to make an interception here, get a nice return. Would have loved to see him cut it back and try to get some more yards, but the offense comes on the field here and
marches down the field for a touchdown.
Michigan has a creative play call here. Gets Eddie McDoom motioning across the field out in space for a screen pass that goes for about 15 yards.
Yeah, so Michigan, once again, using motion, using alignments to give the quarterback a read here. McDoom motions, no one goes with them. It's going to be a zone defense. We got 2 blockers on 2 guys, so it's basically supposed to be McDoom versus the safety who's 15 yards down the field, in the middle of the field. And good block on the outside there.
By Donovan Peoples-Jones, yeah.
By Donovan Peoples-Jones. Grant Perry lets his guy by, but McDoom's just too fast and gets to the corner, and the safety makes the play 12 yards down the field, pretty much just like they drew it up. That's what the matchup they're trying to get is Eddie McDoom versus that safety.
And after a couple unsuccessful plays running up the gut, Michigan goes outside for a Cron Higdon touchdown.
Yeah, it was good to see us going forward here, trying to get back in the game. Really nice block by Khalid Hill. I was saying earlier, it's really hard for a big guy to get down and chop the leg out of the defender here. Something I was never comfortable doing, not something you get a lot of practice with. And the Penn State defender tries to cut inside of his block to make the play, and it just doesn't work out, and Higdon gets to the corner, and it's Michigan's touchdown, and it looks like we're back in the game.
About 12 minutes to go in the second quarter. Penn State's already taken a sack after Michigan's touchdown drive, and here Barkley gets bottled up in the backfield by Khalid Hudson and Rashawn Gary.
Yeah, so Michigan, looks like we're getting back in the game here. We bring a blitz off the edge here. Khalid Hudson startles Barkley. Barkley almost makes one of our best athletes in the team miss. Michigan's running a twist inside with the defensive line. Rashawn Gary somehow squeezes his huge frame through about 5 people and gets there to help in on the tackle. And Michigan is putting Penn State in 3rd and long now. And it looks like we're going to get the ball back with a chance to tie the game.
When you're really clicking as an offense, you are exploiting matchups. And consistently throughout this game, Penn State found their slot receiver, Deshaun Hamilton, matched up against a Michigan safety, and they went to it over and over again for a lot of success.
So this is them moving around, one of their best receivers to get these one-on-one matchups against our safeties in man-to-man. And this is just one of those plays where it's one-on-one. Our guy is better than your guy. And not terrible coverage here, actually pretty good coverage down the field here by Cannell, and he just doesn't get his head around in time, and the receiver for Penn State goes up and makes a play, and they're going to keep on going to this until we stop it, and unfortunately we don't do a great job stopping it all night long.
This time Michigan has Lavert Hill, which I think a lot of Michigan fans wanted to see more of the sophomore cornerback on Deshaun Hamilton in the slot, but this time Lavert Hill is on him and he gets a pass breakup.
Yeah, Michigan decided to change it up here. Lavert Hill is going to take over on the Penn State's receiver after the long completion earlier. He does a great job. Great move off the line by the Penn State receiver, and Hill just doesn't fall for it. He knows he has help inside with the safety in the middle of the field. He understands what this particular defense, where the weaknesses are, and he will let the receiver go inside, but he's not going to get beat to the outside. He maintains his inside leverage and gets turned around and is able to make a great play on the ball. Great technique. I mean, you can't play any better technique than this. Great feet, great awareness, great all-around play.
And his eyes are the ones that finally turn around and knock the ball down.
Yes.
Great play by Lavert Hill.
Yeah, great Hill. Great job getting his eyes around and finding the football and making a play.
John O'Korn kind of picks up right where Trace McSorley left off, throws kind of like a jump ball, and Kakoa Crawford over the shoulder catch, his best catch of his young career at Michigan so far.
Yeah, we've been talking about this all year. We've been seeing this quite a bit. Michigan throwing the one-on-one matchups to the outside, and we haven't won many of these one-on-one jump balls so far this season, but we keep on throwing them. Kakoa Crawford actually runs a little bit of a double move here on the receiver, gets some separation, and this time he gives himself enough space to the sideline and gives John O'Korn room to throw the ball. And O'Korn knows he's going to get hit, puts the ball up over the outside shoulder of Kakoa Crawford, and Crawford makes a great catch.
1:52 to go in the second quarter. Michigan scores its second and final touchdown of the game. The tight ends do some good blocking here to pave the way for Ty Isaac to get in the end zone.
Yes, we've been having some success with this play the last couple of weeks, where it's simple gap scheme. The front side, the entire front side is going to gap down. The tight ends do a great job, especially McEwen brings his defender with him, uses his left arm to drag the defender with him, and leaving pretty much nobody for Owenu, who's pulling from the backside to block. And Ty Isaac, a nice hard run to get into the end zone. Unfortunately, Michigan's last points of the day.
Unfortunately, all the momentum that Michigan had and you thought was going to carry into the first half, they lose on a touchdown drive, and this is the touchdown where Saquon Barkley takes 4 Wolverines across the formation with him, allowing Trace McSorley to scoot in pretty well untouched here.
Yeah, we've had a little bit of difficulty with this throughout the season, where teams are motioning the running back into the backfield, creating some motion back into the backfield, creating some confusion as to who has the running back and who has the quarterback as far as the responsibility in run defense. And obviously there's some miscommunication here. 4 guys go after the quarterback or go after the running back, and nobody takes the quarterback, and he makes an easy read and walks into the end zone. And Penn State scores right before the half.
Interesting change up here for Michigan. They have Mason Cole playing right tackle and Juwan Bushell-Beatty playing left tackle as they do the toss sweep into the boundary with Ty Isaac.
Yeah, so they obviously, like you said, they swap the tackles here. Cole's obviously a little more athletic than Bushell-Beatty. Does a little skip pull here to get out in front and does a great job and allows Michigan to get the first down here. Key first down for Michigan in the third quarter, down by 8. But really great job by Cole and getting out and getting on the defender. And
Kugler pulls a little bit. You'd like to see a little more from him. He needs to get downfield and block somebody.
Yeah, definitely. You'd like to see him be a little more assertive where he's going and giving the running back a little better idea of where his block is going to be.
Lavert Hill in some zone coverage makes a nice play to tackle Saquon Barkley in the backfield.
Lavert Hill really, playing an all-around, pretty complete game here today. Some good pass defenses, and here he steps up and makes a nice play in the backfield. Seems to be some sort of miscommunication on the blocking scheme for Penn State, but Lavert Hill does a really nice job coming in, being physical, creating Saquon Barkley to cut it back. Barkley makes him miss a little bit, and Michigan rallies to make the play for a 4-yard loss in the backfield.
And this is one of the very frustrating plays for Michigan fans. A 3rd and 6. You have 3 wide receivers run patterns of 15 to 20 yards or more. Doesn't give John O'Korn any chance to get rid of the ball. And you think there's probably a likelihood that one of these receivers did not run the right route.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that 3rd and 6, that there's not a shorter route here. And especially against the blitz here, we have against man-to-man defense. And it looks like that one of these receivers, either Kakoa Crawford or Grant Perry, we're supposed to be a little more of a shallower cross, giving a high-low on the defense here. And my best guess, like we said, it's hard to tell by John O'Korn's eyes where he's looking, but it looks like he doesn't feel comfortable with what he's looking at and ends up falling victim to the pressure of Penn State.
We keep on thinking that the last positive play we see is going to be the last one that we do. But here, a nice 20-yard pickup to Grant Perry after Michigan had just gotten called for a chop block that set them back.
Oh, yeah, Grant Perry runs a really nice route here. Call it a sail route where he starts working to the inside, is going to end up working his way back toward the sideline. Great protection by the offensive line all around. Great pass up by Mason Cole. O'Korn gets protection, and it's one of the first first times all night that he has enough time and has the confidence to step up and make a really great throw to Grant Perry, and Michigan's still in the game.
Last week's Twitter poll results, we asked you, will Brandon Peters start at quarterback against Rutgers? Not should he, but will he? 72% of you said no, 28% of you said yes. I fear those of you saying no are correct. I don't think he's a savior, but I think he could be a difference maker. And I'd like to start the meter on finding out now. I don't want to find out when I bring back a team with 19 returning starters next year that has a top 10 talent base and is done in by an inexperienced quarterback. I want to find that out now, especially when our next 3 games are Rutgers, Minnesota, and Maryland. All right, now is the time to find that out. So I agree he won't start, but I definitely think that he should. At the very least, he should be getting some meaningful playing time, which leads right in to our question of the week from Jacob Trausch, who asks, why wouldn't you just turn it over to Brandon Peters at this point? What does continuing to play John O'Korn accomplish in the bigger picture? I'm with you, Jacob. But since you asked, the one thing I can think of is this. If you're Jim Harbaugh, you know, with the expectation level that you're dealing with, you have to recruit at a certain level. And there's probably a big difference being 7-5 or 8-4 and 9-3 to that level of recruit. Especially if you can sell them on, hey, and I've got this kid in my back pocket. I got these 2 young kids, really. Don't forget about Dylan McCaffrey. I've got these 2 young kids, these 2 young quarterbacks in my back pocket. Nobody's seen them. Nobody has any film on them. We're quietly developing them. These guys are going to be difference makers. It's going to be a lot different than what you've seen. These are the guys that can run our system. They can move, and they can throw from the pocket. This is what you're looking for. You can sell that when there's still that aura of mystery. What you don't want to be is Florida with Felipe Franks. Came out of the same class as Brandon Peters. They were roughly ranked around the same. And you've seen Florida put Felipe Franks in, and except for one heave against Tennessee, it hasn't been all that inspiring. And now, if you're Florida, you're kind of like trying to sell your own fans on this guy's the future when you looked at the present, and it doesn't look all that good. Okay, so that could be one argument as to why they are keeping him under wraps. That being said, I do think we will see him play some meaningful football this weekend against Rutgers. That brings us to this final stat. Again, this is from Michael Spath at WTKA, who went back and looked at the top 10 youngest teams in college football on Phil Steele's experience chart. And here are their records right now. Only Michigan State has less than 2 losses. USC, preseason top 5, 6-2. Duke, 4-4. Arkansas, last in the SEC. Pitt, remember they beat number 1 Clemson in Death Valley last year. They're 3-5. Stanford opened up the season with 2 early losses, including San Diego State. Florida, that's our big win. They're now 3-3. So as you can see, experience does matter a lot unless you've had several years to recruit at an elite level in a row. And Coach Harbaugh just hasn't had that yet, and we're feeling the growing pains of that right now. Well, I hope we've added a little sanity to your week on this week's Michigan podcast. Don't forget to support us on Patreon. I'll have my exclusive post-game podcast right there for our supporters on Patreon, as well as my official Michigan game prediction for Michigan-Rutgers coming up later this week. You can also follow us on Twitter at Michigan Podcast. Want to thank everybody that helps put this on each and every week, including all of you who watch here on YouTube and listen on iTunes. Go Blue. We'll see you next week.